I gotta go back to the flatlands.
And we're live.
Of Kansas. We're live. Actually, Austin made us take the stairs. I had to take 4 flights of stairs to get over the train last night, and I legit thought I was going to die.
Hey, it's a good thing you just had a concert to go to.
I was like, who's that comedian? He does Batman.
We got our product placement.
Pete Holmes?
Today, guys.
Pete Holmes was doing a show in Denver, and he's like, you guys keep asking me if I'm okay because the air. He's like, I know how to breathe. I'm okay. I can breathe. And then later in the show, he got winded. He goes, all right, maybe there's something to this.
I love he's like, you guys think so highly of yourselves.
Oh, we're all seeing it together.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Welcome to the Wellness Quacks.
Quack, quack.
quack, quack, quack,
I
quack.
put the quacks in. You don't have to quack.
Oh, this is starting off great.
Yeah. We got a great show for you today. My name is Dr. Dylan Clarke.
My name is Dr. Austin Clarke.
And I'm Dr. Jeremiah Clarke.
We've got the trio, the brothers, in today. Pretty pumped about today's show. We have a great show for you today. Today we're going to be talking about behavioral disorders with children and the effects of food dyes.
How they've dyed your food.
How they dyed your food. But it relates to other things.
Actually,
The
how
leading
your food
article,
died.
yeah.
It's dead.
Hold on.
How your food is dying you.
How you died in your food, from your food.
The leading articles today in today's news, surprise, surprise, are vaccines. There was like 4 of them. I know you guys don't want to hear me talk about that again.
What's
but
vaccine season?
I don't know
I mean,
how,
flu
like,
season.
are your eyes open yet that, like, if you just do a basic search of today's health articles, it's going to be vaccine. They have a new vaccine for this. They have a vaccine for ADHD. Like let's just keep
That's
making.
not a vaccine. It's a drug.
No, it causes it.
Oh, right. Yes.
No causation,
It's correlation.
just correlation, which they're going to say that
It's just
about.
very highly correlated.
Yes.
You ever notice that every time you read a research article, the conclusions are never this causes that. It's always more research is needed. More research is needed. This doesn't prove this, but there's a very high correlation, like a 1-to-1 correlation. A 1-to-1 correlation, it's causation.
The more water I drink, the more I have to pee, but there is no causation of the urination.
It's
Just
correlated.
highly correlated.
Highly correlated.
The other articles, and the reason why this one came up is because there's several articles on diet and behavioral disorders, specifically in children, relating to depression with children. So, surprise, surprise, the synopsis of those articles is high carbohydrate meals in children affects their health.
What?
I realized why Dr. Dylan chose this article today, because he doesn't want me to talk about Wolf's Law. Because it gets brought up on every podcast that I'm on.
I'm glad you brought it
Well,
up.
now
We got
it's been
that out of
brought
the
up.
way.
It's out of
Boom. That was my little plug for that.
Austin knows like a really good law, so he's like, I know this law.
First off,
Next semester, we're going to teach you Hierville's law.
we'll talk about Davis Law next. It's the same law as wolves, but for muscles. It's crazy.
Okay, so with the idea that carbohydrates cause bad diet, like if you follow the recommendation for American diet, like
Correction, the sad diet.
if you follow the recommended diet by the FDA, you will have health problems. It will cause it. But even worse is they're poisoning our food. That's what I want to talk about today, because in a lot of other countries, the things that we are going to discuss today are outlawed. They don't have them in those countries.
It's almost like they know it affects their population.
Not in the U.S., though.
It's almost like their regulatory bodies are actually trying to regulate negative, harmful substances out of their population's diets.
What?
As opposed to ours.
What?
It's like, you should have more of this.
We're trying
We
to
got to
make...
keep this industry going.
No, dude, we're just trying to make Americans tougher, right? Like, I can withstand food dye.
Hey,
What can you do?
how many dollars is it going to take for you to have that?
You British
In your
people
food.
are a bunch of little... You can't handle Red 40? Check this out. Give me some Takis.
Give me some time.
All right, so...
Don't you hate on my talkies?
I know Austin eats a bag of Taki sunflower seeds a day. He's like, I can't figure out why I can't focus.
It's like one bag every 2 days. It's whatever. And I've moved on to spicy dill pickles. The spicy dill pickle seeds are...
Wait. Oh, I thought it meant actual pickles. I was like going to commend you for doing something healthy.
They still have red dye. Like, in order to know that it's spicy, it has to be red. You can't just eat it and discover that it's
Not
spicy.
the pickles. Those are spicy because they put like jalapenos in them.
I'm talking about the spicy dill pickle.
I know. I was talking about health.
Yeah. I mean, sunflower seeds.
I'm feeling attacked, everybody.
All right. I do want to introduce Jeremiah a little bit more. This is my older brother. Looked up to him my whole life. Great guy. Served in the Marine Corps. He's also a chiropractor. Children, 5 kids. What else?
I don't know our
Are
dramatic
you wanting me to
pause.
talk? I thought you were.
I am. No, I'm just like,
Okay.
these are great accomplishments.
Guys, the dramatic pause in between each one of those points was phenomenal.
I know. It made me think. I was like, "Are you?
I was in the Marine Corps.
Is that an introduction for me to say?"
Now, how many tours did you do? 3, right?
I did 3 tours. I was in Fallujah in 2005, just right after the big push and the big battle. That was like November of 4. So I was there in 05. Went back to Fallujah in 2007. Totally different place. It was crazy. It was really weird being there again and seeing how much it had changed. Largely in a good way. When it was secure, people came back. It was a really cool experience, actually. And then I went to Helmand Province, Afghanistan, in 2009. Got home from that one. And
How did you love Afghanistan?
wow, it was the greatest experience of my life. It's almost a moonscape.
No way.
Actually. Yeah, it's very desert.
Don't you ever look at places like that and wonder, like, how do people live here?
Have you considered moving?
The question is like,
And why do we
thousands
want
of
this
years?
place? Why are we supporting this?
thousands of years.
It's like going to Nevada and being like, you know what? This is where we need to occupy.
Yeah.
If you actually notice about Nevada, not highly populated, except for Vegas.
Yeah.
Reno. It's a whole
I
state,
think that's
2
it.
cities.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, Carson City.
They talk a lot to millennials about, if the job situation's not good in the city you were in, maybe you should just move. And I'm like, no, if the Afghanis can stay where they're at, I can make it work.
That teaches you something about fortitude.
If you can carve a life in the Helmand River Valley, I could do it.
How was your experience in the Marine Corps overall? You feel, obviously it benefited you, but
Benefited me hugely. Yeah, I miss it all the time. Mostly the guys and some of the cool
I
stuff.
think every person in the military says that.
It's like one of those universal themes, right?
Can we give it like a percentage? Like, is it 90% the guys, 10% the core?
Oh, of how? Of
Is it
like
80% the guys?
Of love. Of love.
of the love?
Of the love? Is
The
it
amount of the
80% the
love
guys, 10% shooting, 10% the core?
Shooting at 240's got to just make your heart happy.
It's a solid 70, 60% the guys, 30% the guns and weapons and shooting cool shit. That's always a lot of fun. And then 10% is just wearing the uniform and getting chicks.
Yeah.
I mean,
You can't go wrong with that.
and that's our show.
And that got me my wife. So
Every time they want to have another kid, he would just put his dress blues on, and she's like, "Okay,
if you
Fine.
want the secret to marrying up, it's Marine Corps dress blues.
stolen valor coming up."
Yeah.
And then, what made you decide to go to chiropractic school? Jeremiah went to be an accountant, graduated from the University of Utah, and then you decided to be a chiropractor. Why?
You want like the long story? Or the short
No,
story?
just kind of so the audience has an idea.
Yeah, so I just, our dad is a chiropractor. So I saw a lot of the really cool things that happened in his clinic growing up, from like little kids that had ulcers that couldn't eat without pain. Then they got under treatment, and then like they come busting in the doors like, Dr. Clarke, guess what I had for lunch today? And he's like, what? Del Taco. That kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So I got to see a lot of that stuff growing up. Had a cool 7th grade teacher that made us do these minute to win it like tests in class where you had to do a bunch of math problems on a little half sheet of paper. But then one day he switched it up and it was like labeling all of the bones or labeling the major muscle groups. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was just hooked to anatomy. I thought it was just like, this is my jam. I love memorizing body parts.
I'm also going to point out that of the three of us that went to Palmer College of Chiropractic, only one of us was a teacher aide. And that was him.
Yeah,
for spinal anatomy.
Yeah, taught the spinal lab.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. That was when I decided, I was like, I want to be a doctor too. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do what my dad does. And then, along the way, I thought, hey, most chiropractors are small business owners. I think it'd be a good idea to get a business degree. In the course of that, I was just really gravitated towards accounting. I was pretty good at it. Debits and credits, everybody hated them, but I thought they made a lot of sense. So I majored in accounting and then was like, okay, that's done. Now I'm going to chiropractic school.
Yeah.
And then went there and did that.
Yeah, I'd say out of all the brothers, Jeremiah is definitely the most logical one. If there's no logical proof, he's like, I don't believe it.
Don't ask me anything about feelings. My wife's always trying to ask me about feelings and talk to me about feelings. Like, I don't get it.
I just feel this way. I don't really care how you feel.
Kind of reminds you of like a 70s
My kids
dad.
are like, but Dad, it hurts. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Just wipe some dirt on it. You're going to be fine.
Oh, does it hurt?
But they're coughing. They'll be fine in 2 days.
And I can attest. He
Do you
also,
think they're going to die?
he's been like this his whole life. I can attest to that. Here's a quick funny story. When I was a little kid, I had a bad dream and I was going to sleep with my parents. I think I was maybe 6.
Man, don't tell this story.
No, it was great. He came, and I'm glad it happened, honestly, because it put a kibosh to it. He sat on my chest, and he's like, you're not going to wake up Mom and Dad. You're old enough. Sleep in your bed. Dreams are fake. You're fine. And I was like...
He was crying and thrashing. He's like, I'm going to go get him.
I need Mom. I need Dad.
So
and he's like, nope.
I did definitely sit on his chest.
I remember the next time I had a bad dream, I was laying there, and I was like... It's fake. It's fake. I'm okay. I'm okay. So he's been this way his whole life. But it's nice to have him because he will fact check you very rapidly. Like, is that true? Like, yeah, I heard it. Dylan, TikTok doesn't count as hearing something. Like, look up an article, man. So because of that, I did a huge PubMed search today in preparation. So let's get into it. Let's dive into it. One of the things that I like this show to address is common health problems and a different way of looking at it. The idea of, the whole matrix, red pilling people of let's start looking at health differently rather than the mainstream media and what it's been shoving down our throats. It's the way that we were raised, which is also, I think, why we are chiropractors, because in the world as it stands now, if you follow what you're taught and how you're taught, I can say for myself, I've never really fit in. Whenever, my dad used to grind wheat because he would grind wheat, make pancakes. We call them thud food pancakes.
Yeah.
Because you could hear the thud of the... And so when I went to my friend's house and they had like cinnamon Swiss or whatever those little cinnamon roll things are.
The Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah, and the package,
rolls.
you'd open it. Yeah. I was like, these are amazing. And I get this crazy sugar high. And then I remember coming home and just feeling like crap, like sluggish. Dad's like, what's wrong with you? Did you not sleep? Like, no. And like it with like face, body full of guilt. I had a cinnamon roll from a package. Why would you eat that crap? Like, it's so bad for you.
Yeah, the cereal in our house was like grape nuts, the shredded wheat biscuits, plain Cheerios, which I don't know what he was thinking with that. Like, hey, good on you, Dad, but we just took the brown sugar.
Hey, it was brown sugar, not white sugar.
Yeah.
Which is also funny because, like, if you've seen Ted Lasso and he's like, hey, are you hungry? He's like, no, I had one thing of cereal this morning. It was so relatable because growing up is like, that's what we got. We got the one piece of shredded wheat that you sat there and crumbled up and you're like,
Crunch it up, yeah.
Here's my breakfast.
And to that point as well, when people would be like, oh, fortified flour is good for you, like, Dad taught us, like, no, that's, those things that are put in there is crap. So you're like, no, this is fortified flour. Like, I'd be that kid at the lunch table. It's like, yeah, it's still crappy for you. Like, I can't enjoy anything in life because I just know how they're trying to poison us from like the age of 8. Like, the world is poisoning you guys. You got to listen to me on this. So
You wore long hair at the time.
yeah, and I had a long beard.
Yeah.
I had a puka shell necklace. Like, you guys got to listen. So that is why I think I became a chiropractor, because part of it, there's a lot of reasons, but part of it is because I've never really fit in. I've been the fish that's swam against the current. And there's...
Well, it's like once you see something, like your eyes are open, you just can't see it differently again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's putting it in better words than I have been trying to say for the last 5 minutes is once it's seen, it's not unseen. Yeah. And then you see how you are being poisoned and how they are coming at you. And you're like, not everything's a conspiracy. And I'm like, the people like the FDA and the CDC, if you trust them and their judgment, I have a hard time trusting you, because like this is well documented information that food dyes are terrible for you, and try getting away from them. I mean, sincerely, try it. It's very, 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 very difficult.
It's really hard.
And they know it. Like, this is knowledge of the FDA. And some of these studies, what they say at the bottom is like, well, the FDA hasn't done a peer-reviewed study on this, so therefore we can't say that it's
really easy not to have the answers if you don't do the study.
Yeah, or look into the studies, because if the FDA just looked, they would know.
Well, that's my point, is you could just keep not doing the study.
Yeah.
Keep not looking, so you can keep pushing a certain other thing. Well, we haven't looked into that. Well, why don't you look into it? Well, we haven't looked into it. Oh, it makes it really convenient to just not look into it and keep doing what you want to do.
I don't know. I feel like they have looked into it, though. And they're just like, the money is too good. I'm going to keep doing what they pay me to do.
I mean, they go from a government job to being supplied by companies like this.
to sitting on the board of a company.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you mean to tell me that government regulators just like rubber stamp things and then later they go get jobs working for Kellogg? That's crazy. That never happens. Yeah. Only all of them do.
Without exception.
But, you know, to your point, it's like if you just keep doing what everybody else does and you keep doing what they keep telling you to do, you're just going to keep having the same results everybody else does. And you're going to keep having heart disease be the #1 killer of Americans. And you're going to keep having cancer be the #2 killer of Americans. And you're going to keep having medical interventions be the #3 killer of Americans, or the #1 killer of Americans, depending on which study you look at. That's British Medical Journal from 2016, by the way. I didn't just make that up.
Told you.
So
Logical.
You can keep doing all the things they tell you to do that are safe and effective, and you'll just keep having the same results. And the thing about it is like, if you keep saying that, like, if you have a quiz or a question, like, you know, we've all been to a lot of school and you take a lot of multiple choice questions. And if the question is 2 + 2 equals, and you got to solve this equation, and the answers are 6, 8, 10, and 3, well, if you just keep refusing to accept or allow the right answer to be the right answer, because it's got to be something else, you're just never going to solve the problem. So you just keep doing the same things they tell you to do, and you're just going to keep having the same results. Or you can go, oh, maybe this stuff isn't actually working for me. Maybe we should do something different. And the other thing is, like you mentioned, is it's really hard to get away from food dyes. And that's true. If you walk through most of the aisles in your supermarket, like, it's in everything. But you know where it's not? In that very first section on the right, that's all whole foods, like
organic.
Real actual food.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
Or home-cooked meals.
It's not in tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's not in chicken. It's not in celery or spinach.
The frustrating thing to me, though, is they can do food dyes with natural ingredients. So I take supplements for working out and exercising, and a lot of the food dyes that are in there is like it's beets. They'll dye it red with beets. Red. So they have, the frustrating thing to me is like they're knowingly poisoning you because they have alternatives that do work. And
you mean they have the option to use beets instead of Red 40?
Yeah.
What? Why would they choose Red 40 then?
But it's also the fact that they're making like those foods more expensive. Like, if you go to McDonald's, you can get the salad for $11, or you can get a burger for $1.50.
Which has a lot of E. coli in it, apparently. People just pooping in the McDonald's food.
Yeah, wasn't that just like this week?
Yeah, it's here in Colorado, too.
It's here in Colorado?
Some of it, yeah. It's like all around. But, yeah, there's, in Colorado Springs, they've identified some of the stores here in Colorado Springs. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, E. coli. Stop pooping in your food. It's not good for you. With that, though, pull up that chart that I sent you about the rise. My biggest concern really started turning towards kids when I started having kids and seeing the world that they live in. And part of the purpose of this podcast is raising healthy families and how to give you tools and to be aware of things. So that's why I wanted to go over this. Check out these statistics. This is mind-blowing to me. And I remember when I was a kid, they were not this high.
Right? Yeah, like everyone on the playground didn't have peanut allergies when we were kids.
My kids can't even bring nuts to school of any kind.
When we were kids, you were allowed to just run around Costco and get all the free samples, and they didn't need parents to approve it to make sure you didn't have an allergy.
That you didn't die.
That didn't happen when we were kids.
In fact, what I can tell you happened when we were kids, they're like, you've already had 5, kid.
Go find your mom.
But if I put my hat on backwards, can I have another?
But I changed my look. That's how the CIA does it, right?
My name is
Look,
Jason now.
I went from Dylan to Michael to sideways Clarke.
Yeah, so talking about doing the same thing, following the recommendations, you're going to keep getting the same results. This is what we're finding is actually going on, that kids are sicker than they've ever been. So what we know now is that as of now, we got 1 in 10 kids have ADHD.
1 in 10 have ADHD.
That's a 50% increase since 2023. It's kind of a big deal.
I wonder what's changed.
Our
Our genetics are getting worse.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's genetic. 1 in 36 kids have autism.
1 in 36.
Wasn't that 1 in 72 at the beginning of the 2000s?
Yeah.
So it's doubled.
It's 1,000% increase since 1970. And that's not just because we're better at diagnosing it.
It's not.
Like, where's all the 40-year-old head-banging nonverbal people?
Our genetics are worse, for sure.
1 in 5 school-age kids are overweight. That's a 20% increase since the 80s. 1 in 5 kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. 1 in 5 have eczema. 1 in 200 kids have pandas. 1 in 13 kids have food allergies.
1 in how many?
1 in 13.
1 in 13 have food allergies.
1 in 40 kids have childhood depression.
Time
Depression?
out. Before we talk about depression, time out. I have 8 children.
Yeah.
And so far, none of them have food allergies.
Well, you would need 5 more.
Well, I'm just saying that.
Oh, you're almost there.
I'm just saying that a lot of these things, statistically, I should have something with my kids.
Yeah, some kids.
I should have something with my children, with the amount of kids that I have. And I don't think that my wife and I's genetics are special.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm actually very average.
Yep. He is very average.
I'm literally 5'9", 200 pounds. Jason and Travis Kelce on their show were talking about, like, do you think the average man could get 3 yards in the NFL if we gave him the ball? And
Bitch, I could.
And Jason Kelce was like, yeah, you think like, yeah, 3 yards if you did like a screen pass and you had like me and a good tight end like you blocking, like, yeah, I think we could get him 3 yards. I mean, think about it. 5'9", 200 pounds, and I was like, oh.
That's me.
I'm quick, okay?
And then the more depressing part was that Travis immediately was like, no.
No, they could.
Impossible.
I could do it, guys, I swear. All right.
Well, if I can't, then it's his fault because Jason didn't open the hole.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, keep going. The depression one.
1 in 40 kids have childhood depression.
1 in 40 have childhood depression.
Mm-hmm. 1 in 5, like, you're really depressed about, I don't know, Foursquare today?
Wait,
1 in 5
they get to go out and play Foursquare?
for 10 minutes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, in the morning and the afternoon. So there's 2 of them.
There's 2 recesses.
1 in 5 kids have a mental health disorder. 1 in 200 kids have OCD. I mean, I kind of think more kids should have OCD. Focus. 1 in 285 kids will be diagnosed with cancer before their 20th birthday.
That's terrifying.
That's horrible. 500,000 kids are put on antidepressants each year in the U.S. Oh, that's brilliant. We should do that. We should do more of that. Let's just keep treating them with antidepressants. The depressed, give them a drug.
I want to go over a principle, but and then let's get into our articles, okay? But the principle is this. If you go and you start catching a bunch of fish in a lake and all the fish have tumors, do you take, James Chestnut gives this analogy.
Yeah.
Do you take the fish and do you start diagnosing the tumors, and do you start giving them chemotherapy, and do you start treating the tumors and the cancer in the fish?
You're like, damn, these fish just needed more SSRIs.
Yeah. Is that what you do? Or do you take water samples, soil samples, what they're eating, those samples, and start looking at that and then start determining the course of action and how to help the fish? Right? Like, you're not going to give fish a bunch of chemotherapy. And we're the same. We're humans. Why do we treat us differently than you would treat, like, the environment of a fish? Why would you do that? I don't understand why it's not treated the same or even thought the same. But you would think that's crazy. If I told you, like, well, we're treating the fish this way. We have this really new we have this great program. They lose all of their scales, and the death rate within it.
Well, there's a Monsanto plant right there, and they're dumping glyphosate into the water all the time.
No.
That doesn't do it.
That's not it. It's totally safe. They showed us their internal study that said it was safe. They proved it.
But that's how crazy.
It's in PubMed.
That's how crazy the world is, and how we look at health is that we start looking to drugs and medication to take care of it. My argument is that really should be the last thing. The first thing you should look at is, well, what could be causing this? What are the things that I'm consuming and taking into my body so that my body isn't working? Intrinsically, though, we are indoctrinated from the time that you're born that your body is deficient, and that's by virtue of vaccinations. I've talked about this, and I'm talking about it again because there's articles on today's news. That's why I'm bringing this up. This is one of the things from today's news articles, is that from the time you're born, it's like you're deficient, and your genetic deficiencies require this shot in order for you to be safe. Well, no, it's just an intervention that helps you. Yeah, because you don't think that the body is good enough to be able to withstand it. One of the big things why kids were dying of measles at the turn of the century is because they were working in mine shafts, and they worked all during the day, child laborers. They had child laborers. One of the best things for measles is vitamin D.
What time period are you talking about again?
Turn of the century.
Yeah.
So kids were working. They were underground all day. One of the best things for measles is vitamin D. They weren't getting it, and then they died. They were dying. And then once they started figuring that out and they changed it, it wasn't the measles vaccine that they came up with that saved lives. It was, hey, if we get them clean and if we change their environment and we get them the nutrients, the body knows how to fight this itself. And it actually did that for time before that.
They also didn't have indoor plumbing.
Right.
At that time,
Right.
too.
Like, they didn't wash their hands after they went to the bathroom. Like, they crapped in outhouses. Like, they had everywhere all the time.
They
would still
in
dump
alleys.
things
They would
into
dump
the
it in the
streets.
alleys, and they dump it in the
Like,
streets.
we're talking about people just, I don't know how we're so disconnected from like 100 years ago, but it was vastly different than the world we know today.
So-
And once they instituted simple things like indoor plumbing, flushing toilets, running water, like faucets and sinks and cleaning things.
a sanitization plant where it all went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just like those diseases were already plummeting, and then I know we're not talking about vaccines, but then they institute other, we'll say, medical interventions, and then they're like, oh, this cured it. I'm like, well,
That's also
Like,
the interesting. Sorry,
Patrick
finish what you're saying.
Mahomes is like blowing out the Raiders, and you put like our backup in for the last 2 minutes, like he doesn't get credit for the win. I'm just saying.
I mean, they did that with Tony Dungy and the Bucks, but
But whatever. Well, no, but like that's the interesting thing is like in the 1970s, Robert Cass, who was the head of the CDC, he actually did a full study in which they determined the declining rates of all those diseases, and then when the vaccine was actually implemented, and he himself, the head of the CDC at that time, was concerned that vaccines were going to get
the credit
for the declining. But that's not it at all. It was everything that you had alluded to.
Correct, but the point that I'm trying to make with this is that it's an environmental thing. You look at the environment that you're looking at, just like a fish in a lake if they were having cancer, right? Mm-hmm. You look at the environment. You don't look at the individual and think, oh, you're deficient. Oh, your body's not working. Yeah. You start doing that, and what will happen to you is you'll become a victim. You'll have victimized mentality, And then you will be subjugated to whatever the latest and greatest thing is. And then you're dealing with that instead of taking responsibility for yourself and taking educated action in a direction and taking care of yourself. Your body is amazing. I mean, cut it. Well, you shouldn't do that, but like
this just got dark.
We do not advocate for.
Speaking of depression,
This side of the table does not suggest that.
there is a clear line. If you get a cut, or if you get sick, like you have diarrhea, how long do you typically have diarrhea? Let's say you eat something bad. How long are you sick for generally?
Are you living in Peru?
24 to 40.
It's about 2 years.
Here.
Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
It's 24 to 48 hours, right? And then your gut lining, I think your gut lining replaces itself in about 4 days. So you're going to feel malaise, maybe a little weak, whatever. 4 days, and then you're completely healed. Have some faith in yourself and start looking at your environment and then go from that angle to take care of your health rather than just being like, well, I got this. I need some medication. What I lack in my life is medication, right?
Yeah, it's like kids aren't born with an SSRI deficiency. Kids aren't born with peanut allergies.
Yeah.
Like that's just not a thing. That's an environmental. Some environmental thing has happened. They've been exposed to some kind of toxin. Their bodies become hypersensitized to something in some way. There's something in the environment hypersensitizing these kids to things like that, and that's leading to these issues. And to your point, like one of my favorite quotes is that there's no effect without a cause, and while others treat effects, chiropractic adjusts causes. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of one of the things that sets us apart. It's like how we just view things differently. Mm-hmm. And that's, going back to the very beginning, it's one of the reasons I want to be a chiropractor, because I'm not interested in playing whack-a-mole and they must need this drug. No, that one's not working. We need this drug. We got to do this. You're just treating all these effects instead of saying, dude, something's wrong with the water in this pond. Like, let's look at that maybe and start fixing that and see what happens.
It's hard living in the world when it's hard not being a holistic practitioner when that's how you view the world and you see everyone else around you. It's part of the reason, again, why I'm a chiropractor, because you're like, guys, do you not see this? Do you not see this? Look. Am I the only one here? And sometimes it feels very lonely because everyone else is like, oh, it's fine. Just give them some gummy lifesavers and just make a homemade cookie, for crying out loud. Like, do that. Stop giving them just complete utter junk. They have
just make sure you grind your own wheat for the flour. Your homemade cookie.
Well, like another aspect to that whole entire principle, because I feel like from the early age is another philosophical aspect, is they're like, we need to do this for the good of the many, right? Like vaccination, and that's why they're doing it. It's for the good of the many. But it's like, when in reality, you should be addressing the good of the few. So it's like, how are you doing this to take care of this individual?
Yeah.
And so it's where a lot of times I feel like that's another just needle that's completely off the mark within the health industry.
Yeah. Let's talk about food dyes.
Yep.
One of the things is looking at environmental factors, and food dyes, for the longest time, I knew they were bad for you. I heard that they were bad for you, but I've looked into more. I listened to this TED Talk. I'll see if I can post it, of a woman who removed food dyes and her son's ADHD pretty much went away.
That's what it was. It was a TED Talk.
Yeah, it was really good.
She was really good.
She gave her son, and her son, I think, had the yellow food dye. He would literally say, I feel like my body is buzzing. And it caused me to reflect. We have reduced food dyes significantly in our household. We haven't done them. We really try. I mean, sometimes like kids will sneak it because now that they've had, it's like cocaine. And once they've had it, now it's like Jonas is probably my worst offender, my 5-year-old, because when he's somewhere else and he's out and about and he can get his hands on it, he will do it. Now, he's not looking for the food dye. He's just looking for the sugary.
For the cocaine.
Yeah. He's looking for the sugary response.
I just like fruit roll-ups.
Still, where do you keep your cocaine at?
And
in the pantry.
The thing is, when he takes it, there is a noticeable difference in his ability to listen, focus, and do any kind of task. And I don't know, I don't have research behind this, but I feel like my boys are more affected than my girls when it comes to food dyes. You can see it with their behavior and their ability to be able to concentrate on any given task. Jonas, I would say, is my biggest child. Well, he's not my biggest child. Jacob is, but he's he's my child with the biggest issue that when he takes these substances in, his behavior is changed. They have documentation. They have studies that actually show that what is it? It's ADHD, a lot of behavioral things directly increase with food dyes. Some of the dangerous things about food dyes is they cross the blood-brain barrier. And let me talk about that just for a second. The blood-brain barrier has a lot of intrinsic safety things inside of it because it doesn't, your brain controls everything. And so it has to, things that cross that barrier, your body wants to make sure it's very specific so that it only helps the brain be able to function. Anything that crosses that blood-brain barrier, you want to be very careful because it will have a direct effect on how the brain operates. These are known problems that cross the blood-brain barrier, and then therefore when it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it is hard for it to be cleared out or to be circulated out of your system, which is even more dangerous because then you have the idea of accumulation, of it being able to accumulate into the body, into the system, and more importantly, like in your nervous system. Once the nervous system is affected and you've got those kind of toxins, it's very, very difficult to clear them out. Mm-hmm. So just some of the study topics that we did. Let's just read the article titles, fellas. This one's Potential Impacts of Synthetic Food Dyes on Activity and Attention in Children. This is a review of the human and animal evidence. So they do trials on animals first, obviously, and all of the animal studies display changes in behavior. Now, I realize that our metabolism and how we break things down is different from, mice to humans, but there is a lot of similarities, and if that's your first indication and it's the same across the board, to me, I'm like, you know what? That's a good enough study for me when it comes to something like that, and when it's the same and it's consistent. Here's another one, Synthetic Colors in Food, a Warning for Children's Health. This is a great one. What is yours?
Food Color and Autism, a meta-analysis.
Yeah.
Artificial food additives, hazardous to long-term health?
You can look these up on PubMed or Google Scholar and read them. We're going to go through some of the highlights, but... So let's dive into it. Jeremiah, you have some underlines. Can we go through that one first? I like that article a lot. I read that one, Food Color and Autism.
Yeah, so this is a meta-analysis out of the Journal of Advanced Neurobiology in 2020. It starts out talking about how autism has been increasing dramatically. It says 1 in 59 kids, 1 in 37 in boys is where the 1 in 37 comes from, and then 1 in 151 in girls. It's talking about how there's nutritional environmental factors play major roles in autism and its exhibition in kids, basically. One of the things that it says that appealing food colors stimulate the consumption of different food products. So it's kind of a multifactorial thing when you start looking into some of these things and the health issues that are going on with kids, or you talk about obesity epidemic and childhood obesity and stuff like that. It's like, okay, so we're making these foods a lot more appealing. Some of them are addictive in nature with the sugar amounts and stuff like that. And part of that is due to how appealing we make the food and their colors. Like, they're vibrant, they look better. Like, when food didn't look as enticing,
people didn't eat it.
People didn't eat as much. And we had a lot less obesity. So, maybe that's another thing we should look at.
I will say Twinkies have always looked good.
Which what?
I said I will say Twinkies have always looked good.
Which is full of dye, actually.
Which
has dye in it.
Yellow dye. Yeah. So another thing is, since 2011, excuse me, it's been evident that dyes are linked to harmful effects in children. Since 2011. Like, for some of us that are in our 40s, that doesn't seem like that was like yesterday, but it was like over a decade ago.
I didn't start having, no.
We've known this for a long time.
Yeah,
13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we've known for a long time that these dyes are harmful in kids, and they're just still not doing anything about it.
And this goes to the conspiracy realm of especially There, in my mind, there's no way that, let's say, the head of Nestle doesn't know this.
No, there's no way none of them don't know that.
But what do? It's the same idea with endless scrolling. I mean, they found out they know psychologically. I'm old enough that when Facebook was first around, if you wanted to see more articles, you had to push a button that said "Show me more," like in my news feed, and then you'd get like, I don't know, 5 or 8 more of whatever. I'm old enough to remember that. And they found out that it's more addictive for people to stay on their phones longer if they took that feature out and just did continue scrolling. So in my mind, they know this. They have to know this. And this is how certain I am, because like, if this information came out and it could directly harm my company, what I would want to do is like bury it as fast as I can if I was financially motivated, which they are. They don't care about consumers. They care about the board members, and they care about their
investors.
They care about their investors and what they have to pay out in dividends and all that, right? And so if something could potentially harm that business, they'll want to bury it and not be able to have it out. They have to know this, and they just don't care.
Well, do you think they're allowing their kids to eat their foods?
I mean, I doubt it.
I absolutely doubt it. Because, like Mark Zuckerberg doesn't allow his kids to have Facebook. Like,
yeah, they know.
We'll give it to you, but we don't get it.
Yeah. So it's scary to me because, again, this is profits over people, and it's just not a good way to operate. Keep going.
So a lot of these dyes have petrochemicals in them. And
What's
they have,
petro?
Like petroleum, like
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oil chemicals.
Yeah.
Gusta la gasolina.
These artificial dyes have neurotoxic chemicals that aggravate mental health problems. So
You mean if I eat oil, it's going to cause mental health problems?
what? That's weird. You mean like to the point that we might have 1 in 40 kids with childhood depression? I don't know. Maybe. Let's see here. There's the study. One of the studies reported that there's a correlation between yellow dye and sleep disturbances. So,
Which insomnia, we don't have this stat, but I know insomnia is on the rise. I know I have a lot of patients who have had trouble sleeping for a long time.
yeah, it's not a big a deal. I mean, you just take some Zoloft or some Ambien, and then you're just gonna have some sleep eating, which is more chemicals.
Sleep
in your
driving.
brain.
Yeah.
Sleep driving, sleep shopping. I'm fat because of the Ambien. But that's not a problem because we got a pill and drug for that too.
Or you just have your brother sit on your chest to make sure you don't go.
It's all a lie.
That's what brothers are for.
Yeah, but okay, there you go. Like,
Yeah.
And then what happens to a kid? There is a direct correlation with dementia and poor sleep. Your brain cleans itself. There's janitorial services inside of your brain that clean it with a deeper, harder sleep. It's associated with REM. So
It's like a flush.
yeah, flush that out. So if that's not happening, your cognitive ability is declined. Mm-hmm. And proof of that is actually the Marine Corps. There's a great book called On Killing It talks about this. In the Marine Corps, they purposely sleep deprive them, and then they train them on systems because they don't want them to use their brains when they're tired and exhausted, because the battlefield sometimes requires that. They just want them to operate and go off of actions. This, then do this, which is essentially what they're almost doing with our children. Now, not, of course, to the extent of the Marine Corps, but if I just make them tired and then I make them sit down and I make them do this and I make them do this, what we want is robots. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of parents telling me or hearing stories of parents where the teacher's like, if we could just get them on Ritalin or Adderall, your kid would be able to behave in class, right? Because the medication's what your kid needs. Or maybe the child is being fed a bunch of yellow food dye, his sleep is disturbed, he's not getting a deep enough sleep, and his brain's not functioning.
Well, and one of the things is these different dyes have different effects, right? So red dye frequently makes kids more hyperactive. You'll have yellow dye that gives you mental health problems or like depression and other things like that. Like that lady in the TED Talk, she was talking about yellow food dye, and like their kid was like, I just want to die. Mm-hmm. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And then got rid of all the yellow dyes. It's like, oh, I feel so much better. Like I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like,
the kid self-regulates.
yeah, well, their kid's aware now,
Yeah.
so they self-regulate. and he had something at maybe some party or something. They have cupcakes, or I don't know what the story was.
I'll try and post a link to it.
But yeah, so this kid is kind of self-aware and was at a party and had something, and then he just felt this way, and he's like, "What happened?" And like they had a noticeable change, and they were able to kind of figure out, "Oh, this is what happened." But it's like these different dyes have different effects on the body. But yeah, they contain petroleum. They're manufactured in chemical processes that include formaldehyde, aniline, hydroxide, sulfuric acids. There's a lot of impurities in the food color in the form of salts and acids. So they just have these really harmful things.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up formaldehyde.
I
wish I had a
used in the
article that
manufacturing
talked
of
about this. So let's talk about formaldehyde, what it does to the body.
Yeah.
And tell me if your child suffers from any of these problems. But what we probably should do is get them on some meds. All right. Longer exposure, higher doses to formaldehyde can cause coughing or choking. Now, these are high, but think about some of these. Severe exposure can cause death, but it can cause throat swelling from chemical burns to the lungs. Direct contact with skin, eyes, or gastrointestinal tract can cause serious burns. Thing is you're not going to have high levels. But if that's what it's causing on a macro, that's what it's going to cause on the micro. It'll cause that in low levels. What is another disease that people are suffering from a lot? Think gastrointestinal.
IBS.
Yeah, IBS. IBS is like
Gastroparesis.
Gastroparesis, massively on the
another
rise.
huge
I just had a patient. I realize this is anecdotal. I just had a patient. I've been working with this patient for a year, and we've improved. This patient was not defecating for like a week to 10 days sometimes. So we've been working with him. We've been doing water bag. Not we.
Try beet juice.
They've been doing water bag. We've done a lot. Okay, and we've got it to about 1 every 3 days. This patient went over to Europe, spent I think 2 weeks, pooped twice a day, lost 10 pounds
On the regular.
ate whatever they wanted. That included pizza. That included anything. 0 issues. Comes back within a week, back to the same problems again.
Back to me eating U.S. food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
It's weird. I've had patients too that have gone on vacation. They go to Europe. They have all the Italian pasta. No
issues.
These are
They
like
don't even
people-
gain weight.
These are
get
people
bloated.
with celiac disease. Like they are gluten sensitive, and they go to Italy and eat Italian pasta, Italian pizza, no problems.
Like this is not
maybe-
not uncommon
Yeah.
in my practice.
Yeah, maybe your body doesn't have a problem with wheat. Maybe your body has a problem with glyphosate and chemicals and food dyes that are on it.
Just
Maybe it's not the fish.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the water. I don't know.
Here's another thing with
Now it's the
formaldehyde.
factory up the way.
Remember how I said the food dyes cross the blood-brain barrier? So listen to this. Excess formaldehyde accelerates glycolysis and glutathione export in neuronal cells. Formaldehyde-induced alterations in brain metabolism and oxidative stress may contribute the pathological progression of neurodegenerative disorders. What that means to you is that when you have these type of chemicals inside of your brain, it causes enough stress that the structures of the brain start to break down. And because not a lot crosses the blood-brain barrier, it doesn't heal nearly as fast. It's like if you get sometimes it doesn't heal at all. The central nervous system is one of the slowest, if non-existent, healing organs in the body. So when you put that kind of stress on it and you have oxidative stress, so it oxidizes, it breaks it down, it can't, in some cases, even fix that, even if it wanted to. So this is excess amount, but if you're doing this over a lifetime, what are you setting yourself up for?
Dementia.
Dementia and Alzheimer's. Yeah. You're setting yourself up for it. This is one thing, like when I started reading about this, I was like, whoa. Now I actually look. I'm like, if it has food dye, I just don't eat it. Mm-hmm. It's not worth it. And if that means you're eating less, it's probably not a bad thing either, especially in America. Anyway, so formaldehyde, there you go. Formaldehyde is also a carcinogen and a mutagen. What does that mean? What that means to you is that it causes cancer and changes how your cells work and produce and make things. It says, you need to handle it with extreme caution. So anytime you're dealing with it, and again, it's accumulation over lifetime. So maybe you can handle small doses, which is true with most things. I'm not going to be crazy about that. There's a lot of things in small doses that your body can tolerate and probably work through it. But an accumulation of anything in excess. Now, there's some things that even in small doses are just bad for you, like mercury. Formaldehyde actually is just bad
which is
for you.
also in food dyes.
The next thing.
No.
Actually,
Go ahead. Go to it.
it just says that there's a lot of impurities in the food colors. They're in the form of salts and acids, and sometimes lead, arsenic, and mercury may be present as impurities in these food dyes. So, more things are just.
If you ever want to scare yourself a little bit, look what happens whenever you take bath salts. Like those crazy addicts that take bath salts, look what happens to their bodies.
You mean like they start tweaking like your kids on red dye?
Yeah. And, hey, right here, we actually know that it's in the form of salts and acids.
Yeah.
Yeah, take some bath salts.
So let me go over this too, because you brought up hydroxides. So hydroxides are another derivative of food dyes that makes food dyes that use hydroxides. So hydroxides in the body, specifically in the form of compounds, just different compounds, are generally considered harmful and corrosive if ingested, and if they come into direct contact with skin due to their strong alkaline nature, they cause burns, tissue damage. Now, again, these are in small quantities, but if you take the small quantities, instead of putting it on your skin, which your skin's pretty tough, and you put it in your digestive tract, guess what you're going to have?
What if you did that?
Inflammatory bowel disease.
What if you did that for 20 years?
I can't figure out why I keep loading.
I've tried everything.
But I love red vines. They're so good.
Yeah, they are good, though. And the only proper way to eat red vines is by the bucket.
It's all coming with me.
If you eat red vines by the bucket, I will tell you, you will get extreme stomach pain.
You will.
Extreme, and your poop will just come out red. It almost looks like a
Red vine.
poop red vine.
Yeah, don't ask me how I know.
Speaking from experience.
It's gross.
Eating or drinking sodium
That's why he's got
hydroxides can cause severe burns and immediate vomiting. Again, those are large quantities, but it can also cause nausea, diarrhea, chest or stomach pain, as well as swallowing difficulties. Again, you look at these and you look at the majority of problems that people are dealing with, there is a correlation with the derivatives of these things. There's nothing good in food dyes, right? Like there's no redeeming value in food dyes. There's nothing of benefit that you can get from them.
That's not true. You can make food more appealing and sell more of it.
Okay.
That's redeeming.
That's a benefit for some people.
That's it. I'm investing in Nestle tomorrow.
Yep.
Why wait?
All right. This is a long study, but it's great. Why don't you go over yours, Austin?
I mean, essentially, this one is kind of more the same thing. There's a few points in this that I absolutely love. I mean, UPFs, that stands for ultra-processed foods. It's been proven that it causes disturbed behavior in children. AFCs, which are azodie food colorants, so your food colorants that is going in, have a neurotoxic properties through gut microbial generation of toxic metabolites. Now, the next sentence. Observational studies show association between high emulsifier intakes and cardiovascular disease. Animal models and in vitro studies have highlighted neurotoxic, cytotoxic, genotoxic, and carcinogenic effects.
Which I'm kind of curious, actually, because if it crosses the blood-brain barrier, I wonder if it crosses the placental barrier.
I would think it has to.
I would think it would, right?
Like, there's no way that it can't.
Which would make sense then why we are having more problems, because during utero, that's when all the systems are being developed. Now, I don't know. This is me just going out of limb.
Just
I'm
speculation.
just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But if it crosses the placental barrier and it causes these kind of neuronal issues and developmental issues within the body and organ systems, I got to think that if it crosses the placental barrier and it crosses in utero,
Yeah.
I would think that your kid comes out like, how are you getting autism? Well, maybe.
Okay, so I meant what I said earlier when I said kids aren't born with peanut allergies.
They could be.
They could be, but it's not because they're born with peanut allergies. It's because you poisoned them in utero.
And there you go. This is my logical brother.
That sounds
That's what you
really
did. I didn't
good.
mean to. Well, you did. So.
Sounds really good when you put it that
It's
way.
okay, man. We all do like things that we wouldn't do if we knew better, and then it's once you learn better, then you
know
start
better.
doing
Then you do better.
Yeah. But this right here, high intake of non-caloric sweeteners has been linked to cardiovascular disease and depression in adults and is linked to childhood obesity.
Non-caloric sweeteners? You mean like
Aspartame?
Diet Coke?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's weird.
you mean aspartame isn't safe?
what?
That's so weird.
Leah
I heard.
Do not tell Leah Nightingale.
PhD.
I heard differently.
Leah Nightingale, PhD, dark chocolate.
Yeah. Little research has focused on children who are the largest consumers of ultra-processed foods. Potentially, they are a ticking time bomb. But in everything, and this has just been in observation, as they say, it's been linked to all of those things.
This
We've
is,
observed.
I want to read these 3 paragraphs. This is really good. This is Synthetic Colors in Food, a warning for children's health. Listen to this. A child's neurodevelopment has a direct influence on several behavioral aspects throughout their life, covering their social interaction, language, hearing, vision, behavior, posture. Posture? I'm so glad we brought this up because this is going to bring me to my next
Read
point.
that again.
A child's neurodevelopment has direct influence on several behavioral aspects throughout their life, overcoming their social interactions, language, hearing, vision, behavior, and posture. Essentially, the proper functioning of this development is crucial to ensuring satisfactory performance in the school environment. Of course, it comes down to school. When neurodevelopment occurs regularly, the child is expected to achieve significant academic performance. However, if there are irregularities in this process, it is likely that the child will need more attention to follow their peers in academic activities. That's just basically saying that if they're progressing properly, you can chart it and they should be
Moving along
with their peers. Right? The group of people with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is more vulnerable to the negative effects of food additives due to the behavioral pattern known as avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID. This disorder manifests through a range of eating behaviors, including overeating, severe restrictions, and even the complete avoidance of certain foods by the affected person, especially children, since their interests, for the most part, are stereotyped and they tend to maintain repetitive eating patterns, often based on colors, accepting some and rejecting others. Sensitivity to color additives is not exclusive to the autism disorder or to the autistic group. Children without behavioral disorders may also manifest neurobehavioral abnormalities when consuming synthetic dyes. Therefore, children diagnosed with ADD and ADHD are also experiencing changes in behavior, according to Rambler et al. Children exposed daily to synthetic dyes face significant consequences, presenting statistical changes in symptoms. I look at it like this. A kid who's got autism or ADD or ADHD, and I mean real ADHD, I think it's overdiagnosed. However, there are some kids that I have met where you're like, no, something's definitely going on. It's not autism, but like their behavior is like
Just psychotic.
yeah, they are
all the
psychotic.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true ADHD in my book. Like if your kid's just having trouble sitting down in class, like, yeah, welcome to having children. Like
Yeah. Put them outside and let them play basketball.
He's a boy.
the way that I view this is those groups are going to be highly affected by things like faster than maybe you and me are going to recognize it within ourselves. And so unfortunately,
But those groups of ASD kids.
yeah, or ADHD, right? Like they're going to display what, let's say, a food dye does to a person faster than it will display.
Yes, because they're already hypersensitized.
Yeah.
Because their threshold, their body's their threshold for being able to tolerate chemical stresses in their body is not where we are. It's down here, and so when they get, it blows them off the charts.
So I think it's good. My point is with that, that's excellent description. Thank you. My point with that is they're a great observational group because if something affects them, it's going to more than likely affect you. They're just already at that threshold where they're going to pop. And if we have something where we have direct evidence of, hey, this causes this kind of problem, I just think you should take that and generally apply that across the board. If you're giving
It's not just bad for ASD and ADHD kids.
Yeah,
It's
it's
bad
everybody.
for everybody. Your kid just doesn't flip out the same way. It
and
doesn't mean that it's okay.
And it means his tolerance is higher, which means the damage long term will be more, because you're going to stop doing that with your kid who's got ADHD because you can't stand it. You'll go crazy. I've talked about this before. I have sympathy for parents who get to wit's end and they do something that's, drastic and sad to their children. I don't think it's right. I'm not making justification for them, but I have sympathy. Like a mother who hasn't been able to sleep because their kid is so colicky. After 8 weeks of that, let's see how well you perform with a kid. So, they may do shaken baby syndrome with their child, and it's tragic and it's sad. And I don't think that the parent should still be punished or whatever. But let's see how well you do when you're only sleeping 20, 30 minutes at a time after 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 16 weeks. Let's see how well you do. So
let me tell you, you won't do well.
That's why Marines are so angry.
Yeah, you're not going to. So these parents specifically typically make changes faster just so that they can cope with life. But the long-term effect, just because you're not going to display that way, what it means is that the accumulation will be greater, I think, in the population if you just don't pay attention to it. So
because non-catastrophic effects are still negative effects.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what I gather from this is if it's affecting these kids that much, that means it is affecting my kids. And so this is a very basic, simple thing that you can remove from them, and you're going to help their digestive tract, but you're also going to help their neurological development, which brings me to the point of chiropractic and what I want to talk about with that. There's a study that was done by Evan Katz where they increased the cervical curve in the neck, and then blood flow to the brain went way up. And the only way you get nutrition to the brain is through basically like that nutritional osmosis. So if blood touches your brain, it is lytic. It's destructive in nature. In school, we had these brains, and one of the brains was a stroke victim, and there was a whole chunk out of the brain, like it was a hole in the brain. I didn't know that as a stroke victim. I went to the instructor, and I was like, hey, what's this? He goes, oh, that's a stroke victim. That's what happens to have a stroke. When you cut off oxygen or if blood touches it, it's lytic. That's why if you have an aneurysm where it leaks and you don't get the blood off the brain or the body doesn't clean it fast enough, it'll actually destroy the neuronal tissue. It'll destroy it. It'll break it down. So but you have to have the healthy blood vessels in order to get proper nutrient exchange. And depending on what you're taking in your body is either going to help that process or destroy that process. And if you come to the knowledge of it and you've got a kid who's playing video games and their head is down like this all the time, you're going to restrict blood flow and you're not going to clean out their brain nearly as well. So structurally, there's like...
So you're telling me that they're going to be head down, playing video games, eating Doritos, having a Mountain Dew, and they're not going to get the proper nutrition for their brain? I'm confused here.
And their behavior is going to be fine because they have a screen.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the epitome of a terrible situation, which is also funny because, when you give a kid a reward, let's say they did good things, right? What does a parent do? Well, here, why don't you have some Mountain Dew? We'll get you your favorite chips, and why don't you go ahead and play some video games? Mm-hmm. And then the next day, they're like totally out of control, and you're like, I gave you a reward!
You were so good yesterday. Why are you acting insane today?
Yeah. So that's why I like this study. That was my takeaway of it.
It's not like my teenage years were lived off of pizza rolls and Mountain Dew. And it's cool.
Yeah, I just want to say, don't judge me for my Red Vines comment earlier, okay? Like,
I'm getting better as I learn.
Once, like, I can't be the only one that stayed up all night playing Halo.
Yeah, all right.
A kid's posture is also directly attributed to the neurological development.
Yeah.
So if they can recognize that a kid's posture is directly related to the neurological development and food dyes, then that's another reason why you should get them checked by a chiropractor. And that's not even crazy. That's just going off of their own research. Get your kid checked and make sure that their spine is developing the way that it should be, within the parameters that it should be, because there's a direct effect on how their nerves actually function, depending on their posture and their spinal alignment. And there's also a direct effect of how the blood flow and the nutrient exchange system to the brain is also given based off of that. One of the biggest disservices that I feel like parents can do is is be like, well, I don't believe in chiropractic, and then not only give them food dyes, but then leave them in bad posture and bad position. You're just setting your kid up for a very difficult life where they've got to figure out all their health stuff in their 20s and 30s. I'm not saying it's too late, but it's just a bigger mountain to overcome, to be able to deal with. So in my book, what I'm going to tell you is get your kid checked out, take away food dyes, number one. And if the market starts demanding no food dyes, like if you still consume, give me something that's got a lot of food dye in it.
Doritos. A lot? Like,
yeah, Doritos. Yeah, that's good.
Takis.
Doritos, Takis.
If you start demanding Takis and the market...
Code Red.
Code Red.
Let's do Code Red.
Oh, yes.
Well, Code Red's just terrible. Let's do Takis.
Red Bull.
Okay.
Energy drinks.
If you start...
I'm not looking at you, but I'm looking at you.
Guys, there's somebody else in the room.
It's our producer right there.
If you start demanding foods without food dye and their investors are happy and they can still give you the same profits without food dyes, I would like to think that they'd be like, oh, we can make this switch because it's going to be the same.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense because they're willing to do it in Europe.
I mean, they may not.
They do it in Europe, but they don't do it here. Like Takis in Europe don't look
They
like
have
they do
Takis
here.
in Europe?
They have Takis
Yeah.
in Europe? I didn't know that.
Are you sure?
No, I'm dead serious. You guys should take.
They
you
don't
should
have
look it up.
biscuits and gravy in Europe. So.
What?
Their food is trash.
Have you not seen these videos?
Their
of
snacks aren't.
Man.
I mean, who wants baked beans for breakfast?
I like baked beans.
For breakfast?
Yeah.
But seriously, there's a bunch of images. If you just do a couple
Yeah.
of quick Google searches, you can see foods in the United States or snacks in the United States compared to snacks in Europe. Takis, they look completely different. They're not blood red.
And I also wish that the FDA would just do their job. It's like Bill Belichick. I'm just asking you to do your job. Is that too much to ask? Like, I just wish you'd do your job. Like, if you know that it's toxic, can you just like say, hey,
Actually say, hey, we're not
you got
going
to
to
stop doing that? But
poison our population.
But I would like to think that if there was enough people that started saying, hey, we don't want it. Red Vines does make dye-free red vines. Yeah, they do.
Yes, we're
So-
back on the menu, boys. It's time for an all-nighter.
So one of the
Halo
going back to the structure thing. If one of the best things you can do for your kid is get them adjusted. Get your kid adjusted. Get his nervous system functioning better. Get blood flow to the brain working better, and then remove these things. And now you're going to set your kid up to be able to get that crap out of their head, to be able to start sleeping better, start to be able to focus better, and then they start getting satisfaction in life because they start doing better in life in general. So you can set them up for failure, you can set them up for success. Chiropractic is actually a massive way. The other reason why chiropractic is important is because what other profession is looking at the water in the lake? I mean, I'm all ears. I'm sincere. Like
Homeopaths, probably. Or,
a little bit,
Yeah.
homeopaths. But even that profession is getting smaller and smaller.
oh, it's
There's
getting
not
a lot smaller.
there's not nearly as many homeopaths, and they try to make them look like quacks too.
Quack, quack.
Yeah. So okay, homeopaths. So you have chiropractors. You have homeopaths. Who else do you have?
Naturopaths. I mean,
Naturopaths.
there's, again, not that many.
But naturopaths are still a
Like
lot of
find one.
times are looking at taking care of the symptom with a potion that they make. Now
Your
their
true-
potions are better.
It's true.
Your true Eastern acupuncturists.
Yeah. And the other thing.
Those guys are like. No,
So
we
if
gotta
you don't
get
like
those
a
organs working
chiropractor,
again.
find one of those people who's going to look at the cause. That's going to look at the water in the lake.
Yeah.
Like get a doctor that's going to do that, not one that's just going to get you in, prescribe you some Adderall, prescribe you some kind of, something to make you poop because you're not pooping. But like look at someone who's going to look at the water in the lake for you and your family.
What's the poop medic? Ducalax.
Yeah, Dukalax.
I don't know. That one always cracks me up.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can't
Yeah.
poop? Take a Dukalax.
yeah, that's what Dukalax. I got to take a dookie.
This one's been brewing, boys.
But find one, and that's one of the things that I love about being a chiropractor is I'd say a lot of what I do is education. I love when a patient comes in and says, hey, I'm dealing with this. What do you think it could be? Oh, well, it could be this or this or this or this. Well, and then they start narrowing it down. They start thinking for themselves. Like it's actually, I love empowering a person especially one that looks at the water in the lake.
Yeah.
Like those are the best patients to have. Be a good patient, and I know that like there's good doctors who want to help you and take care of you in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But find a doc, and what I'm going to tell you is, as a profession at large, I would say that we're the profession who looks at the water in the lake, who starts testing it and looking at that.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of it, man. Like, if your kid is consuming a bunch of food,
Even if it's not what I do, right? Like I'm a spinal specialist. Like that's what I do. I do posture corrective care. And that might not be what I do in my practice, but they can be a good resource for you. They can get you connected to where you need to be and get you pointed in the right direction. You know, just find somebody, like you said, just somebody that's looking at the water in the lake.
Because bare bones, that's what
even if it's not what they do, they can be a good resource for you.
Yeah.
That's all I had for today. Is there anything else you guys want to
add? No.
I just have these 4 I kind of would like to point out.
All right.
So the food
Hit me
dyes,
with it.
the food dyes that are known carcinogenics is red 3, caramel coloring, yellow 6, and red 40.
Whoa, caramel coloring, really?
Yeah.
Don't say that.
That's a bummer.
You got to edit that part out.
Dr. Dillon's going to put a quack over her caramel color.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that. I
Yep.
thought caramel coloring came from, honestly, like this is true. I did think this. I thought it came from, like sugar, like
molasses.
yeah, or even like cooked white sugar.
Yeah.
Which is still not good for you, but I would have rather it been that than this.
Yeah.
Petrochemical.
So the 4 that are known
carcinogens.
carcinogens.
So this means they know that there is that it causes cancer.
Yep.
Which how many more kids are getting cancer? Like
in-
what was it? 1 in 200 or 1 in 400 before the age of 23?
It was 1 in 285.
So
1 in
Will be
300.
diagnosed with cancer before their 20th birthday.
1 in 300 before their 20th birthday. Okay, so knowing that and knowing that and that's big money too, right? Like that's why I have no problem saying I hate pharma. Like I hate pharma.
That's why I don't wear pink in October, because I don't really think the Susan G. Komen people give 2 shits about looking into this stuff.
They don't.
No.
Well, and then also
If you know that this is causing cancer,
We're spending billions on cancer research.
we
But
have
again,
information.
Are they?
If you refuse to accept 4 as an answer, you'll never find the right answer.
That's true. But
It'd be like you going in there, you're like 2 + 2 is 4. That's not one of the.
It can't be 4. We've already studied 4, and with our internal study,
And we don't like
it
the
can't
answer.
be 4. We don't like that answer.
We don't like the answer
That
4.
answer doesn't work for us.
It can't be 4 because it's not A, B, C, or D. So we have 3. It's close to 4.
yeah. So even check this out. They know that red 3, it causes tumors. They know that caramel coloring, yellow 6, and red 40.
Yeah. I got that one
Definitively.
on this one, toxicology and food dyes.
Yep.
Red 3
Definitive-
causes cancer in animals.
Yeah.
So they know that it causes cancer.
At least 4 dyes, blue 1, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6 cause hypersensitivity reactions.
Yeah.
And this is like...
Which I
okay,
talked about because that's one of the. What is that? I think that one's derived from was it aniline or
So,
whatever.
and then I'm going to point this out again. What's allowed in the United States and not Europe? I'm going to go through.
You mean they don't want to give their people cancer?
caramel coloring is allowed in the United States but not Europe. There's blue 1, yellow 6, yellow 5, and red 40.
That's allowed here.
That's allowed here but not in Europe.
I mean,
all the ones that I just-
it causes cancer.
It's like their regulatory bodies regulate.
Who owns the patent on the?
I don't know, BlackRock?
Vanguard.
Who owns? Yeah, on your cancer treatment. Who
That's unreal, dude. Oh,
So-
that's unreal.
The inadequacy, this is the conclusion of this paper, the inadequacy of much of the testing and the evidence for carcinogenicity, genotoxicity, and hypersensitivity, coupled with the fact that dyes do not improve the safety or nutritional quality of foods, indicates that all of the currently used dyes should be removed from the food supply and replaced, if at all, by safer colorings.
if at all.
That's their conclusion.
So break down the big words so that people can understand.
So carcinogenicity is cancer causing. Hypersensitivity is
Being
Hypersensitivity.
hypersensitive to things.
and then genotoxicity.
What? Yeah, that's when I wanted you to really. Yeah. What's that? What's genotoxicity?
What does geno mean, Dylan?
Genes.
Yeah.
It changes your genes.
Yeah. Almost like, never mind. I'm not going to say it because we'll get censored.
Oh, this isn't going to be allowed on YouTube.
Gene therapy. Anybody else heard of a recent gene therapy that was mandated on everybody?
Don't say the actual word, but yeah.
Yeah.
It rhymes with
Vico.
maxed.
Vidco.
It rhymes with maxinations.
Pig Latin, Vidco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and gene,
91.
Here's the crazy thing about gene therapy. When did they really start? What group? You mean the first group that comes to my mind when it comes to gene therapy was who? The Nazis.
Oh, yeah. Well, through Bayer.
And then we
Oh, Bayer. They're just a totally normal.
IG Farben.
They're just a totally normal back pain drug people, right?
And then they took those same scientists who were doing gene therapy and we brought them into the United States. And here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, it is the same.
Don't mean to take you guys down a rabbit hole, but we do.
I mean, it's it's in the open. You
I
just
didn't
have to
say that. That was the International Journal of Occupational Environmental Health.
Wait a minute. Who's this author?
In 2012. Again, cutting edge science.
22 years ago.
It's cutting edge, not, it's 12.
Oh, shoot. We're editing that.
I'm curious if
I thought we were back to the analogy that 2 + 2 is not 4.
I'm curious if Sarah Kobloweski and Michael Jacobson are still with us.
No, they suicided themselves with 2 shots in the back of the head.
You published that? They probably lost their licenses. For
I
real, though.
too.
Yeah. So. All right, guys.
Cool.
Moral of the
quacky.
story, get adjusted, see a chiropractor, get a good holistic practitioner that cares about you, that's going to start looking at what's in the water, and cut food dyes out of your diet. That's my biggest takeaway today. If your kid's suffering from depression, gastrointestinal distress, ADD, ADHD, autism, any kind of behavioral disorder, one of the best places to start right off the bat. I mean, without even you probably shouldn't be feeding them donuts for breakfast, but I mean, even before changing that stuff, this is like a very basic place to start where there is a direct correlation where this equals this. Take it out.
Did you know that glazed donuts don't have food dye?
But the jelly-filleds do.
But the jelly filled, dang it.
Maple doesn't, does it? Or is
Yeah,
that the
that's
caramel color?
coloring. Why do you think I was so sad? No more maple? No more jelly-filled, eh?
What about the blueberry cake donut?
I'll tell you what I will do right now is I'm going to make my own raspberry jam so I can inject my own donuts.
There you go. There you go.
Dye-free! But even
No,
before...
but the reality is everything, everything just points to the fact that a whole food diet really is what's in your best interest.
Yeah.
Is if you can look at your food and tell what it is, that's what you should be eating.
I kind of wonder if that's why some of the people who go on some of these extreme diets where there is awesome benefit, like a carnivore diet, they're also just completely removing all of those other things.
They're removing all of the food dyes. They're removing all of the glyphosate wheat.
Yeah.
They're removing, I don't know, what else? All of the sugar. They're removing all of the inflammatory process. I mean, there's no inflammatory issues in protein.
What was the autoimmune disorder that Michaela Peterson
Well, they're
had?
trying to make it. I mean, they...
She had I thought it was
Was it rheumatoid?
Rheumatoid arthritis issues.
Yeah.
Is what she was dealing with as far as I know.
And she's now 6 years, no issues with it at all.
I don't know the timeline, but I know she's had a remarkable recovery.
Yeah, it's been years that she's just been eating straight carnivore and
Yeah.
not a single issue.
Beef and elk.
Got one this year.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
All right, so keep it quacky. If you have any questions, please like and subscribe always. And then if you have any other topics you'd like us to discuss or look into, we'll give you our opinion on it. I'll look up research articles on it, break them down for you, try and break down the terminology to make it more digestible for you. Please like and comment and subscribe. It's how we get seen, and it's how we get more of this information out there. And if you have any questions, of course, post them below. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you had a great day. Big shout out to having Jer with us today. Super love having you here. It's always good to see you.
It's always good to be here.
It is the best.